So I'm super excited to be here with you all today. I was here a year ago when we started this FireChat app, and since then I'm going to tell you what happened because it's just amazing. So before I go to that, I want to talk to you about Open Garden. We had that vision when we started the company, which, like Zinnia said before, it could be called also, it was a crazy idea because when we went to raise money, everyone didn't believe we could just make the technology happen. So the vision is that we believe that everyone was going to have a smartphone very soon in their pocket, and that we could build a network out of these smartphones, not by just connecting to a cell tower or to a Wi-Fi access point, but just by interconnecting these smartphones to one another directly using the wireless interface in the phone, so Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, to create a network. So the way it works is when these phones are connected to one another, it creates a daisy chain of smartphones, and information can flow from one phone to another. And the reason why it's so important, it's because in the next 3 years, you're going to have 5 billion smartphones that are going to be shipped on the market, and most of them in emerging markets like Asia, Southeast Asia, but also Africa. And we believe that's the solution to connect the 5 billion. And the reason is simple, because when you look at this problem, so big companies like Google or Facebook are trying to come up with solutions from the sky with satellites, balloons, or drones. But all these solutions are for connecting people in remote areas, rural part of the world. It will never work to connect actually the people who are in the big cities. And 80% of these smartphones are going to be shipped in these big cities in emerging markets where you have the most dense populations. And that's why peer-to-peer mesh networking, which is a technology we developed, we believe is the solution to bring the first experience of connectivity to people in emerging markets for many reasons. First, because people who buy smartphones in emerging markets most of the time don't pay for data because it's still too expensive, or just because the mobile data infrastructure is not there yet. But with peer-to-peer mesh networking, you can provide the first free connectivity experience to these people, and then later on onboard them to the internet when the infrastructure is available, or when the price of the connection, the data plan will go down. So that's a map that shows all these big urban areas, and you can see they are all located in emerging markets. And this graph shows that almost 80% of people of adult population within the next 2 years will have a smartphone. So we know we are on the right track, that the trends are in the favor of just deploying this technology massively to provide connectivity. There are also many reasons why it's so appealing to the market. Because when you want to provide mobile connectivity, you need spectrum. But the amount of spectrum that is available is limited. You cannot invent spectrum. So the only way to actually deploy and provide mobile bandwidth using the spectrum available, if you want to provide more mobile bandwidth, then you need to increase the power of the towers, the base station. But you can't increase that power indefinitely because you're going to start to fry the birds, and you don't want to do that. So the other possibility to increase the availability of bandwidth is to increase the number of base stations. So then you realize, so why don't you just turn each of these smartphones that are shipped to the market into a single base station? And that way, each time there are new devices that are being shipped, they create their own capacity and the capacity for the network. So the way it works, today we use Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and smartphones interconnect directly, seamlessly. You just need to have our app, so we do it with Open Garden and with FireChat. I'm going to tell you the story of FireChat pretty soon. And what's amazing is today the distance between phones is between 90 feet to 250 feet, depending on the conditions. So we had some Japanese bloggers making tests, and they were able to send messages from one phone to another over the water at 250 feet from one another. But pretty soon you're going to have new technologies that will increase the distance between these smartphones. So what we are building is really a worldwide infrastructure of out of smartphones, and we call that the Internet of Us or the Internet of People. And that's why it's so important, because it's really an internet that's built by crowds. When we launched our first really consumer app, FireChat, so that's one sentence that appeared in the Time magazine, which said basically it's the most important thing to happen to the internet since the big internet hubs in 1995. And the reason is, with our technology, we turn every person, every smartphone into an internet node. If you look at the architecture of the internet, the way it works, you have servers in the cloud that are owned by big entities, and these entities basically have peering agreements and exchange data with one another. We are just replicating the original architecture of the internet, but bringing back at the level of the individuals. So when we launched FireChat, we thought it was a perfect application. It was an app for demonstrating the power of this technology. And we thought it was a perfect way to have people understand what is peer-to-peer mesh networking. 10 days after the launch, we had like 1 million people who installed that app, and it was just a demo. So we realized we were about something bigger than what we thought, because initially it was for enabling you to be connected during large events like concerts, music festivals, or at Burning Man. I don't know if you know that festival in the US. So just 10 days after the launch, for example, it was used massively in Taiwan. We were #1 in the App Store because the government threatened to shut down access to the internet. So all the students installed the app to be able to communicate with students who were inside the parliament and outside the parliament. And since then, it was just crazy. So last year, I was here in April, so just a few weeks after the events in Taiwan. And it was amazing because there were some students in the audience from Taiwan at that time. And since then, the app has just exploded in usage all over the globe. We had more than 5 million people who installed the app in less than a year. It was used in Iraq, was used in Iran, during Burning Man last year also. So 4,000 people during the festival of Burning Man used FireChat. And the most amazing accident was what happened in Hong Kong in end of September last year. And I was lucky because I was in India, in Bangalore, to explain the potential of FireChat and how this can become the tool to connect, to bring a free connectivity experience to people in India. And on my way back to San Francisco, I stopped in Hong Kong, and I was actually complaining to my marketing team, saying, oh, why don't we have any users in Hong Kong? I don't understand. And in 24 hours, 100,000 people had installed the app in the city of Hong Kong. So I decided to stay, and I spent 10 days in Hong Kong during the social movement that happened there. And it was just a complete surreal, amazing experience. And during my stay, so in the first week, we had 500,000 people in the city who installed the app. And the reason why that happened is because one student was, so Joshua Wong, saw that the Chinese government was going to stop access to the internet, which never happened. What happened is you had so many people in the streets of Hong Kong that all the mobile networks were congested. So the only way for the students to remain connected was FireChat. So you had a group of students seated in circles, and they were just waiting during the day very peacefully and just exchanging messages with one another and information about what was happening, but also joking while they were waiting. What's amazing is you realize the potential then of such a technology, such a tool. If you compare it to another social media like Twitter, in the first 4 days of the event, you had 1.3 million tweets globally about the event in Hong Kong. In the same period of time, we had 2 million chat sessions on FireChat locally, exchanging information about what was happening. And when you know a chat session is not just 140 characters, but hundreds of messages or thousands of messages, it's a huge amount of data. So since then, we were also used in India during the largest music festival, NH7, and more recently also by big DJs in the US who were performing in Texas and in a small island called El Padre Island. And they were also using FireChat to communicate with the crowd. And so where it can be also very useful for this kind of technology is when you have disaster events. So it was used during the floods in Kashmir. And you can imagine that if everyone during such an event has the app, then you can have a minimal experience of connectivity. and exchange messages. That's just a slide about the huge amount of visibility we got after all these events. It was, I think when I was in Hong Kong, I slept 2 hours a night for 7 days. And I was just getting interviews after interviews. And it was a fantastic accident for the company also because to bring awareness about peer-to-peer mesh networking and about FireChat. So that's what we want FireChat to be used most of the time. Also to create these instant social networks when you have group of people forming, like concerts. It's going to be used also pretty soon in stadiums in Mexico in the coming months. I want to talk to you about one of our latest innovation, which is called Greenstone. So Greenstone is the first messaging beacon. It's a small device that is going to cost a few dollars. And we want to seed the density of the network in places where there is absolutely no access. So like Osama mentioned earlier, it is going to be useful in some places in India, for example. And what we want is to give away these greenstones in campuses or places where you have absolutely no connectivity, and people who have a smartphone and FireChat will be able to have a minimal experience of messaging and exchanging information with one another, even if there is no internet access. And we also believe people are going to have fun building their own internet using FireChat and these devices. And we start with messaging because it's really the first layer, but already big corporations like Walt Disney or Coca-Cola contacted us because they want to use this kind of technology to distribute content. So it's really a transformation completely of the internet, because it means the internet now, more and more of the content is going to be pushed to the edge of the network. And that's so a recent quote from the Financial Times. A month ago, we got awarded from the Financial Times for boldness in business in technology. And I mean, I love this quote because it's really what it is about. And I think we are close to what they say with FireChat. And so FireChat today is like big chat rooms, so public conversations, and people are having conversations about anything, and all you say is public. But the big thing is going to happen in the coming months is we're going to bring private messaging on FireChat. And that's huge because it means that it will bring the first free messaging experience in places where people start to buy smartphones but don't pay for the data plan. And we believe that's going to completely to reset the whole messaging industry to zero and be the beginning of this new internet that we have envisioned 4 years ago when we started the company. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Micha, thank you, man.
Thank you.
This is great. What are you doing? Quick question. Where are you heading with this? Like, okay, it's great, it's free internet. Where are you heading?
The goal is to bring connectivity to the maximum number of people.
Okay.
So that's really why we started the company. Mm-hmm. And FireChat is a great driver of adoption of the network. And later on, we will also open that network for other app developers to benefit from it. And manufacturers of small connected devices who want to get access to the internet or just have some form of connectivity from time to time at a very, very low cost. That's how we also intend to monetize this network. Because when you have tens of thousands or millions of people using our software or our networking component, you have a network that's comparable to the one of a big carrier or mobile network. The disruption is you don't need any hardware infrastructure. You just sit, it's an overlay network that sits on the top of existing devices. And so you can enable connectivity for people for professionals who manufacture small devices, for example, or other app developers at a very, very low cost.
Interesting.
Any questions?
Let's open questions. One gentleman over there.
I have a question. As far as I understood, you use Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to establish connection.
Yes.
The smartphones regularly re-establish connection and find new smartphones and establish connections and so on. How does it affect the battery life? And how often should you recharge your battery? Thank you.
So the impact on battery, like you mentioned, is very important because you don't want to drain the battery while this is working in the background. It depends on the platform. If you look on iOS with so Apple made something called multi-peer connectivity framework, which really optimized the way you can discover devices around you. And so we use that to establish the first connections with other devices. On Android, we had to build the whole thing from scratch. and we detect the devices seamlessly, so the user doesn't have to do anything, and then we build these links. But Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, if you look in terms of consumption, so your 3G, 4G connection is 1,000 milliwatt approximately. If you look at Wi-Fi, it's 350 milliwatt, and Bluetooth it goes down to 50 milliwatt. And what's amazing is when you have a peer-to-peer mesh network that's formed, you can optimize the battery life for the people involved in that system. So let's say you are full on battery on your phone, and I am low on battery. I want to check my emails, for example. So now instead of using my 4G connection, I can use the Bluetooth and then take some of your battery, and then it will extend basically my battery life. So that's the way the network can also optimize the consumption of energy. Otherwise, if the more you use the app, when you use the app, you are going to use the battery anywhere, and you are going to use one of the wireless interface. So it's like any other app. It depends on the time you spend on the app.
The question that I have, or maybe I didn't understand that well, is when you have this micro internet session, can you connect with this group using FireChat with internet access?
So FireChat is all about messaging. So the way it works is if you have other people with the application next to you and you type into a chat room, even if there is no internet access, this information is going to flow from phone to phone. If someone has access to the internet within the group of people, then you're going to receive information from the internet. Even if you don't have an access, that will come from someone. And then maybe hop onto other people's devices and arrive to you. And when you're going to send messages, and especially when we bring private messaging is very important, because maybe you have access to Wi-Fi, I don't. I'm next to you and I have no data connection, but with FireChat I will be able to message someone maybe on the other side of the planet, and the message will go to you, and then you're going to hand it to the internet through the Wi-Fi link.
So my service want to be a hub.
Yes, exactly.
One more?
Very impressive. A quick question. You're obviously not monetizing right now, and everything is open source, so everybody loves it. When you will probably monetize at a certain point, what's the plan about, you're probably logging the data, so what's the plan about privacy around the data? So no one is probably complaining, but one day they will, because it's about you're getting their data, you're getting their information. So what's that plan?
So I'll try to answer to your question in the best possible way. I think there are two aspects in terms of privacy. There is the data that the company could eventually collect on servers. The way it works today for FireChat, you need to create an account, an identity, so like any other web service. But about the information that is going on the network, we don't store the data. So everything that you post on FireChat is going to remain, I think, for a short period of time on the server, the time other people who are interested in the topic can get the information on their mobile, but after it's going to disappear. And in any case, it's all public information. There is nothing private. When we bring private messaging, what's very important is you don't want the messages that go from one hop to another, so one person to another, to be read by anyone. So then it's a lot of crypto, and these messages will flow from one phone to another and will only be able to be read by the person who is supposed to receive that message.
So you actually delete data, and it's clear for the users that the data doesn't live in the servers for longer than X number of time.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. You mentioned that the app is all about connectivity and messaging at close distance. But can it also tell you the location of the person through the app?
So today, when you post a message on FireChat, we use basically your IP address to tell from where you post the message. So when people see what you are posting, they can see the city where you are posting that message. So that's the kind of information that you can have on the app when you look at people's messages.
Okay, but you can't have it, for example, from the person who's 200 meters from you.
No. That said, the way it works when you have a mesh network, and it's completely distributed information within the devices, so there is some intelligence in the software. So let's say you know that you have 5 people around you who could be connected to that network. I'm here, I'm just connected to you, I don't know about these people, then automatically your device is going to tell me that there are also these people around you.
I only asked because you mentioned that the app was used in disaster
Disaster recovery, yeah,
Yeah,
it could be used
recovery.
in these kind of
Yeah.
situations too.
And I was just thinking in terms of the potential of the app in itself in, for example, if somebody was stuck in a bubble and was able to activate the app so that and send a message to somebody 200 meters away, would that person receiving the message would be able to say, that person is 200 meters away through my GPS, my phone, I can go?
It's the only information that that person would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We see nearby and the message.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Misha, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a lot of talking to me.
Thank you.
Great.